The day my husband told me to deal with it, he was standing in my own driveway. His arms swept toward my grandmother's guest house like he was presenting a prize. He was smiling. She was smiling. And I was standing there holding 11 years of professional patience in both hands, along with documentation he did not know existed, a signed legal waiver he had forgotten about, and a 3-truck clearance crew staged 2 blocks away, waiting for a single text from my phone. He had no idea what was coming, neither did she. My name is Valerie. I am 39 years old. I work as an estate inventory appraiser. That means I walk through the homes of people who have passed away, gone through divorce, or suffered financial collapse, and I catalog everything. Every chair, every coat, every piece of jewelry, every cabinet full of dishes. I photograph it, assign it a value, cross-reference it against purchase records and insurance documents, and prepare it for legal liquidation or estate transfer. I have been doing this job for 11 years. I am thorough, I am precise, and I do not miss details. My husband Derek runs a small local marketing consultancy out of a home office. He has 6 clients, 2 part-time staff members, and a very confident way of talking about himself in rooms where people do not already know him. We married 8 years ago in the backyard of the same property we lived in, a large, well-maintained home on a half-acre lot in a quiet neighborhood. There was a main house, a detached guest house at the back, a garden my grandmother planted row by row with her own hands, and a wide wraparound porch that faced the street. That property was not something I bought. It was not something Derek and I built together. It was something I inherited entirely from my maternal grandparents. Their names are on the original deed from 51 years ago, and my name replaced theirs when they passed. My grandmother made sure of that. She sat me down 2 years before she died and told me clearly, "A woman should always own her foundation, Valerie. Never let that go." I did not let it go. When Derek and I married, my property attorney drew up a marital property waiver. Derek signed it in a lawyer's office on a Wednesday morning in October. On page 7, line 4, he acknowledged in writing that the estate, the land, and both structures belonged to me and me alone, and that he was making no legal claim to either. I remember him glancing at the page for about 4 seconds before signing. "It is just paperwork," he said, capping his pen. "We are a team." 8 years later, standing in that driveway, he had forgotten every word of it. I had not. The shift started small. They usually do. About 4 months before everything collapsed, Derek changed. Not in a dramatic, obvious way. It was quiet. The kind of slow drift to almost talk yourself out of noticing. He stopped asking about my work. He stopped sitting with me in the evenings. He started spending weekends doing what he called sorting out the guest house, which had always been used for overflow storage and occasionally as a workspace for me during busy estate seasons. When I asked what he was sorting, he said he wanted to fix it up. I did not push. Derek liked the idea of projects more than the work of finishing them, so I filed it away and moved on. Then the account charges started. I manage all household finances. I review every statement line by line, not because I am suspicious by nature, but because 11 years in estate appraisal teaches you that financial records tell the clearest version of any story. In March, 2 charges appeared from a premium home furnishing company I did not recognize. In April, a charge from a high-end linen and decor boutique, followed by a delivery fee I could not account for. In May, 3 separate transactions from a luxury furniture provider totaling over $4,000. None of those items had appeared in the main house. I told myself there was a reasonable explanation. I did not want to be the kind of wife who assumed the worst from a credit card statement, so I gave him space. I kept watching. I noted every charge, dated every entry, and waited. That was a mistake. Patience is a strength. But waiting when your eyes are already telling you something is different. That is just delay. On a Wednesday afternoon in early June, Derek drove to the city for what he said was a full-day client presentation. He would not be back before 7. I waited until his car cleared the end of the street. Then I walked to the back of the property and pushed open the guest house door. It was unlocked. What I found inside was not a renovation project. It was not a rental unit. It was not anything Derek had described. It was a fully staged, professionally furnished personal suite. There was a king-sized bed with a custom upholstered headboard. 2 fitted wardrobe systems ran along one wall, both filled with women's clothing in a size that was not mine. On the bathroom shelf, luxury bath products stood in a row next to a marble tray of perfume bottles I had never seen before. Folded on the towel rack were linen hand towels, monogrammed, thick, expensive, with initials that were not mine. I stood there without moving for a long moment. Then the professional part of my brain quietly took over. I walked back to my car, pulled my appraisal bag from the back seat, and returned. For the next 2 hours, I worked the way I work every estate clearance, methodically, without emotion, without rushing. I photographed every item. I logged each piece into my appraisal software with estimated values and condition notes. I cross-referenced the furniture against the household account charges I had flagged over the previous 3 months. By the time I finished, I had matched 34 cataloged items to unauthorized withdrawals from our shared account. The total came to just over $22,000. Derek had used $22,000 of our joint money to build a private suite for another woman, inside a structure built on my inherited land, on the property he had signed away all legal claim to 8 years ago. I locked the guest house door behind me, walked back to my kitchen, and called my property attorney. My attorney confirmed everything I already knew about the legal standing. The guest house had been classified as a non-residential utility structure in my grandparents' original property filing, a classification that had never been changed because there had never been a reason to change it. When she combined that with the marital property waiver Derek had signed, the picture was clear. I was the sole legal owner of the land and both structures. Derek had no right, no authority, and no legal footing to authorize any residential occupancy of either building. 2 days after that call, I found out who she was. Our neighborhood has a private social media group. Most of what gets posted there is lost dog notices and arguments about parking. But that week, someone shared a photo from a local wine bar, a casual group snapshot. In the background, sitting close to a woman I had never seen, was Derek. His arm was around her. He looked relaxed. He looked comfortable. He looked like a man who had no idea his wife was about to read this post. I scrolled to the comments. A neighbor I had known for 6 years had written, "Is that Derek?" He introduced her to us at the farmer's market last week. Said she was his new live-in partner. Did not mention Valerie. New live-in partner. The woman's name was Amber. I found her social media pages within 10 minutes. She had been posting photos of her new home for 3 weeks, filtered, styled shots of the guest house interior, the same furniture I had already photographed and logged. She had tagged the neighborhood. She had written words like fresh start and finally home and my man came through for me. My man came through for me. I sat at my grandmother's kitchen table, the same table where she had taught me to roll pastry dough when I was 9 years old, and I made a decision. I was not going to have a loud, messy confrontation. I was not going to demand an explanation from someone who clearly did not think I deserved one. I was not going to cry in a driveway. I had spent 11 years cataloging the contents of other people's lives after things fell apart. I knew exactly how to handle what came after the collapse. The difference this time was that I did not have to wait for it. I was going to organize it myself, with documentation, legal authority, the right team, and perfect timing. I called my divorce attorney that evening. She began preparing separation paperwork immediately. I did not tell Derek. I called Bernard. He runs the largest rapid response commercial estate clearance operation in the county. Over the years, I have sent him a significant amount of business, and he answers my calls on the first ring. I laid out the situation in full, the documentation, the deed, the waiver, the staged suite, the unauthorized spending. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, "You have everything authorized and ready on your end. I have everything ready on mine. Give me a green light and we are on site inside 10 minutes. I said, "I will send one text. The message will say, 'Clear the site now.'" He said, "Done." I also called Deputy Renee from the local property enforcement office. She and I had worked together on several estate clearance cases over the years, situations involving unauthorized occupants on legally deeded property. I walked her through the full documentation package, the original deed, the marital property waiver, the cataloged clearance report, the unauthorized financial withdrawals. She reviewed everything and confirmed she could be present as the authorized enforcement officer on site, legally empowered to issue trespass notices to any individual unauthorized to be on the property. I scheduled everything for a Tuesday afternoon. Weeks before any of this, Derek had mentioned in passing, completely unguarded, completely confident, that he was planning to move Amber in officially that Tuesday. He said it the way someone says it when they expect no pushback, when they have already decided the other person does not matter enough to fight back. He did not know I had been listening to every single word for months. I told no one else what was coming. I did not call relatives or neighbors. I did not post anything. I did not warn Derek, and I did not tip my hand in any way. I simply prepared, I confirmed, and I waited. That is something this job has taught me better than almost anything else. The most powerful move is never the loudest one. It is the most prepared one. It was 2:14 in the afternoon on a Tuesday when I heard tires on the driveway. I was at my kitchen window when Derek's black SUV rolled in. Amber was in the passenger seat, dark sunglasses on, one hand resting on the open window frame. Behind them, a white pickup truck sat at the curb, loaded up with oversized luggage, designer boxes, and what appeared to be a full clothing rack wrapped in dry cleaning bags. She had brought everything she owned. I walked to the front door and stepped out onto the porch. Derek saw me. For just a second, something moved across his face, a flicker of something uncertain. Then it was gone, and the confidence came back. He climbed out of the SUV, planted his feet, and swept one arm wide toward the guest house with the ease of a man who believed he had already won. Amber stepped down from the passenger side in high wedge sandals, pulled a designer bag onto her shoulder, and looked at me, slowly, from head to toe and back up. What I saw on her face was exactly what I expected. A smug, victorious smile. The smile of a woman who had already written the ending to this story, and in her version, I was a helpless, trapped housewife with nowhere to go and nothing to do but accept it. Derek straightened up and looked at me with flat, dismissive eyes. "Amber is moving in permanently," he said. "No warmth, no hesitation. The guest house is set up and ready. We are done tiptoeing around this." He tilted his head slightly, a gesture I had seen 100 times, the one that meant he was being patient with someone he considered beneath the argument. "You are going to have to be an adult about this." A pause. "Just deal with it, Valerie." Those 4 words. The street was completely quiet. Amber's smile widened. She turned toward the pickup truck and waved a hand at the driver to start unloading. I stood there and I felt it, the full, total weight of everything, the $22,000, the monogrammed towels, the social media posts, the neighbor at the farmer's market, 8 years of a marriage being quietly dismantled by someone who had decided I was not worth the honesty. All of it landed at once. Then I turned around. No raised voice, no slammed door. I walked quietly back through the front door, down the hall, and into my kitchen. I stood at the counter, picked up my phone, and typed 5 words. "Clear the site now." I pressed send. Then I put the kettle on. 7 minutes passed. The sound of unloading from the pickup truck drifted through the kitchen window. Footsteps, the thud of bags, the scrape of furniture legs on a truck bed. Derek's voice, talking to Amber, relaxed and self-satisfied, everything going exactly according to his plan. Then the sound changed. A low rumble started at the far end of the street, deep and steady, the kind of vibration that travels through the ground before you even hear the engine clearly. And then it got louder. Not 1 engine, 3. The rolling growl of 3 heavy commercial trucks coming down a quiet residential street hit the neighborhood like a held breath released all at once. I wrapped both hands around my mug and stood still. Outside, the unloading sound stopped. What is this? Derek's voice from the driveway. Sharp now, rising. Who are these people? Who called these? What is happening? I did not move. The front door burst open 60 seconds later. Derek ran into the kitchen with the color completely gone from his face. What did you do? Why are they here? He stopped at the edge of the kitchen counter, breathing hard, staring at me. I turned from the counter and looked at him. I said absolutely nothing. I raised my mug slowly and took one long, quiet sip. Valerie, his voice cracked. Call them off right now. You do not understand. You cannot do this. I turned back to the window. And then Derek looked too. What he saw outside was something he never saw coming. Bernard's 15-person crew had already fanned out across the property in matching company uniforms, moving with brutal, professional efficiency. 3 massive commercial clearance box trucks sat end to end in the driveway, completely blockading the property. Workers moved in coordinated pairs into the guest house with flat dollies and straps, and back out again without pause, without rush, without any drama at all. Every piece of furniture came out. The king-size bed frame and headboard, broken down in under 4 minutes. The fitted wardrobe systems, disassembled and wrapped. Every clothing item, stacked in clear garment bags. Every accessory, every perfume bottle, every monogrammed towel. It came out piece by piece, item by item, in exactly the order my catalog listed it. Each item was carried to the public sidewalk and stacked neatly, completely visible, fully exposed in the front of the property. Then the crew turned to the pickup truck. Amber's designer luggage, her boxes, the clothing rack, every single thing she had brought to move into my grandmother's guest house. The crew offloaded and stacked it on the sidewalk alongside everything else. Derek ran outside. I watched through the kitchen window. He was waving his arms at the workers, moving toward them, his voice going higher and higher. You cannot do this. This is private property. I will call the police. Stop right now. Bernard stepped forward and held up a single document, the authorized property clearance order, tied directly to the deed and the waiver. He spoke calmly, clearly, and pointed to the signature line. Derek stared at the paper. He went quiet. Deputy Renee came around the side of the lead truck, holding 2 printed documents. She walked directly to Derek and Amber, extended one document to each of them, and waited while they took them. Her voice was even, official, without anger, and without satisfaction. These are formal trespass notices for this property, including both structures on the land. The sole legal owner of this estate has authorized the removal of all unauthorized items from the guest house effective immediately. Per the signed marital property waiver on file, you hold no legal claim to this land, to the main dwelling, or to the utility structure at the rear. You are both required to remain on the public sidewalk and are legally barred from re-entering this property. Amber looked at the paper. Then she looked at Derek. What does this mean? Her voice was higher now, uncertain. Derek, what does this mean? He had no answer. He read the trespass notice a second time, then a third. His jaw moved without producing a word. The neighbors had come outside. They always do. 7 of them across the street, standing at the edges of their lawns, watching in silence. These were the same neighbors Derek had introduced Amber to just weeks earlier, telling them she was his new live-in partner. They stood there now and watched the sidewalk pile grow. They watched Amber drop to her knees next to a toppled clothing rack, trying to collect scattered items from the pavement. They watched Derek standing at the curb with a trespass notice shaking in one hand. The crew finished in 31 minutes. Every item from the guest house, every luxury piece, every wardrobe item, every personal belonging sat stacked in neat rows on the public sidewalk in full view of the neighborhood. I stepped out onto my front porch. The late afternoon light was soft and gold. My grandmother's garden was in full bloom along the porch rail, the same flowers she had planted in rows, in this same yard, decades before I was born. I stood there with both hands around my mug and I breathed. No anger, no triumph. Just the settled, solid quiet of someone standing on solid ground. That is when it happened. There on the public sidewalk, surrounded by the full, completely exposed wreckage of everything they had planned and spent and staged together, Derek and Amber sat down on the curb. Together, in front of the neighbors, in front of the trucks, in front of everything. And they cried. Not quietly, not politely. The way people cry when the story they wrote for themselves suddenly ends on a page they never expected. Derek had his face pressed into both hands. Amber's mascara ran in 2 long lines down her face, and that smug, victorious smile, the one she had worn when she stepped out of that SUV, was gone, completely gone, as if it had never been there. Deputy Renee came to the front door a few minutes later. She handed me the signed enforcement report, clearance complete, trespass notices served, property fully authorized and documented. She looked at me for a moment before she turned to leave. "Your grandmother would be proud," she said. I thanked her. I closed the front door. The house was quiet. It was mine. It had always been mine. Now it felt that way again. People hear this story and ask me why I did not fight louder, why I did not shout or cry or beg for an explanation. Here is the honest answer. I spent 11 years learning that the true value of something is not found in the noise around it. It is in what it actually is, documented, provable, and legally yours. Derek thought my quiet made me weak. What he never understood was that it made me ready. He handed me 4 words and expected surrender. Instead, they were the last thing he said as the man of my house. If this story hit home, tap that like button and drop a comment below. I read every single one. Subscribe so you never miss a new story. And if you know someone who needs a reminder that staying calm is sometimes the most powerful thing you can do, share this with them today. I will see you in the next one.